Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Monday, June 8th, 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson, the Center Square's state government reporter. And in today's episode, a few hundred residents took to the streets in Seattle over the weekend near Aurora Avenue North, marching up and down the busy crime-plagued stretch we've been talking about in recent weeks. A lot of sex trafficking there, a lot of related crime, multiple shootings, and folks who live and work in the area, as well as some elected officials, are demanding that the city respond. Now, absent from that gathering was Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, but she did over the weekend attend a press event where some new tiny homes were opened. My colleague Randy Diamond was there. We're just a week to the first Seattle match of World Cup 2026. What about those cameras in the stadium district? There's been a bit of an about face from the mayor. We'll share some of that with you. And then finally, the latest on the request from a state lawmaker urging Governor Bob Ferguson to temporarily suspend the CCA tax, the Climate Commitment Act taxes that are adding another 52 to 55 cents per gallon of gas. The pain at the pump is very real for all of us. So I got a response last week from the governor's office saying why they would not do that, why the governor won't suspend the tax. I sent some of those comments back to Todd Myers at Washington Policy Center, and he is responding, basically refuting every bit of the argument from the governor's office as to why they don't feel it's necessary. So let's wade in. All right. A few hundred residents who live along or near Aurora Avenue North and people who have businesses along that stretch attended a rally on Saturday evening. They basically shut down the street. This wasn't Antifa or an anti-ICE protest or something else that we're used to seeing in the city of Seattle shut down a busy state route. This was people demanding that there be something done about the crime that is plaguing that part of North Seattle and demanding really the city do something. Now, there were multiple elected officials there. It was this stretch basically near the pedestrian bridge at 102nd Street, if you're familiar with that area of Aurora at all. Many of those electeds walked out there with residents and talked with them over a number of hours. And I want to remind you, we recently shared video of a gentleman who showed up at a Seattle City Council meeting to tell the council, please do something. I live along this crime-plagued stretch of Aurora, and a bullet recently came through a window just above my infant's crib. This was part of that gentleman's testimony.
It's gang-led, organized, violent human trafficking, and the city is turning their eyes. I live there. I can't turn my eyes. I can't wait for the strategic framework plan. In the past 2 weeks, my house was hit by gunfire. I have a 6-week-old baby, and it hit 2 feet above my baby's window. A week later, my neighbor had a bullet go through their window into their bedroom.
Thank you.
I want to know what the city will do, even though it's politically inconvenient, to urgently shift our policy, and I want to know who's going to actually step up to lead in our city.
Now, homeowners and renters alike are fed up with the violence and the sex trafficking and prostitution and the related, basically, turf warfare. It's a pimp warfare. What people have said, people are killing each other over control of this stretch of Aurora. And those that live and work in the area are demanding something be done. Now, we had Seattle City Councilman Bob Kettle, who is chair of the Public Safety Committee, recently talked with us here at the Center Square about that. City Attorney Erica Evans, who is definitely more of a left-leaning city attorney than the previous city attorney, she was there meeting with folks. And I also met with, just by phone today, I was hoping to have a Zoom interview, but met over the phone with that former Seattle City Attorney, Ann Davison. She's the one who told me that it was people reaching out to her over the last week that convinced her we got to do something. And she was really the impetus for this gathering that happened in Seattle on Aurora over the weekend. And she told me by phone today that, even all the time as city attorney, she'd never gotten such a huge response from people saying, please, please help me. She's no longer the city attorney, but they're still reaching out to her saying, can you do something to help us in this area? And the major concern that she raised with me today was that because the World Cup, again, just we're 1 week away from the first match in Seattle, that the international players in human trafficking will be here. Apparently, wherever the World Cup goes, they go with. And it's known that there could well be kind of another turf war. You've got the Seattle, prostitution handlers, and now you've got these international players coming in. It sounds like something out of some kind of sick Liam Neeson movie or something, but unfortunately, it's very real from what Ann Davison told me. I'm going to put up part of what she shared with me in our conversation today. She said, we need the mayor to call the governor and the National Guard because, as we know, our city is low on numbers of police officers, and those low numbers that we do have are going to have to be concentrated at the games, as they should be, for security. Meanwhile, the underbelly and the increase in traffickers that will be going to the north end of Seattle, that leaves those neighbors and those girls and women, the ones being trafficked, just that much more at risk with no protection. Again, we've reached back out to the governor's office for comment on this, as well as the office of Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, but have received no response. Now, more tiny homes are opening in Seattle. My colleague, Seattle reporter Randy Diamond, put up an article on our Center Square Washington page today. I encourage you to check that out. And he also attended a media event in Seattle on Sunday with Mayor Wilson. So this is the first 50 housing units that are going to be ready tomorrow on Tuesday. And it's far short of the mayor's promised 500 units she said we'd have by now. But, it's we're a tenth of the way there, I suppose. And these are in place before the opening of the World Cup on June 15th with that first match. So Wilson took a bit of a victory lap on Sunday.
What has been accomplished here is remarkable. From site selection to opening day, this project moved from concept to reality in approximately 5 months. That is one of the fastest shelter development timelines our city has ever achieved. And I just want to emphasize, yes, you can clap for that. Yeah. And that speed matters. When people are sleeping outside, every month matters, every week matters, and every day matters.
She touted the fact that from site selection to the opening of these first 50 homes, it was basically 5 months. So she's counting that a major success. Says it's been one of the fastest shelter development programs in the city. But I do remind you that Inner Bay, where these 50 homes are going in, is the same area where a tiny home village has come under incredible scrutiny after a reporter took Andrea Suarez of We Heart Seattle into that village and showed her one of the tiny homes in that village set aside basically for fentanyl use. This was the drug house in the tiny village. And the assertion there from residents who spoke with Andrea Suarez on the record was that the managers there, the operators of this facility, know full well what's going on, and they choose to turn a blind eye. All right, another update in keeping with our Seattle topic today. We seem Seattle-centric today, don't we? It's an about face from Mayor Katie Wilson. She has now ordered that surveillance cameras that were installed in the SoDo, the stadium district, for the FIFA World Cup tournament be turned on. In recent weeks, she said, unless we have a credible threat, we can say there's some stuff online that shows that some players might be planning an attack during one of the matches. We're not going to turn those cameras on. She doesn't like the cameras because she says that it allows the federal government to use them for immigration purposes, and she wants people's privacy protected. But she said that on Friday, a statement came out from her office that said, I'm going to activate the cameras following updated information from Seattle Police and the FBI on the current global and local threat environment. Didn't say there was a specific threat, which again, she said she would have to see that before to turn the cameras on. But I think there's been a heck of a lot of pushback on this. And we spoke specifically about this very issue just a little over a week ago with John Scholes with the Downtown Seattle Association, who was at the time saying, we've got the cameras there. We put them there knowing World Cup is coming. We got to have these cameras on. There's no reason in the world not to do so.
Cameras are clearly helping us solve crimes that otherwise wouldn't be solved, and helping us apprehend suspects who have, committed serious crimes that potentially wouldn't have been apprehended otherwise. I've never heard a juror, a victim of crime, or a prosecutor say, hey, we wish we had less evidence. And these cameras provide clear evidence, and they're helping our officers. And as we rebuild the police force and hire more officers, and we've been down, several hundred over these last couple of years from where we were in 2019, having this tool and technology is helpful. So I say more cameras. I'm glad the mayor has evolved her position, and I think recognized the value of this system, and has been listening and talking to a lot of people, and kept the ones we do have in place, which was, I think, somewhat potentially contrary to the position and some of what she said on the trail. So I commend her for, listening, evolving her position, taking on new information. I do think the ones by the stadium that have been installed, we should turn them on.
And finally, we told you last week that Senate Republican lead Chris Gildon had issued a second request for Mayor Governor Ferguson to temporarily suspend CCA taxes to give Washingtonians some relief at the pump. A gallon of gas today, according to AAA Washington, is $5.62 on average. That's $1.46 more than the national average. Now, the Climate Commitment Act here in Washington, to fund some of these projects that are aimed at reducing carbon emissions, dealing with pollution, especially in overburdened communities, adds 52 to 55 cents more on every single gallon of gas. So Senator Gildon said, just suspend it temporarily until these prices come down. And the pushback from the governor's office was to say, no, we're not going to do this. The real culprit here is President Trump and the war with Iran. Now, certainly there is some impact on gas prices since the war with Iran and everything that's been going on with the Strait of Hormuz. There's no question of that, but we can't really control that right here in the state of Washington. So Senator Gildon has said what we can do is to temporarily suspend the CCA taxes. Now, the governor said he's not going to suspend that. And he sent me the office sent me some additional information. His main communications person, Brianna Aho, sent me some information. And it pointed to some statistics from 2024. And this is 2026. So it was interesting. So I went back to Todd Myers, Vice President for Research at Washington Policy Center, who is also in charge of their Center for the Environment, and brought him what the governor's office had said and got his response to that.
Their claim is that the claim that the CCA and the low carbon fuel standard are adding 55 cents a gallon. They say that's false because of data from 2024. Well, it's 2026. And the key thing to note is that prices of the CO2 tax fluctuate based on the auction. The price right now is more than double what it was in 2024. So the CO2 tax has more than doubled. So the claim that it's not 55 cents now because in 2024 it wasn't, is just completely out of date. It's a ridiculous argument. The governor's office clearly doesn't understand how the system works. I can't imagine them putting this out if they did understand how that system works.
Now, Todd Myers at Washington Policy Center also pushed back on something the governor's office sent me, which was also from that same 2024 Clean Fuel Standards progress update. And it said that Washington's clean fuel standards are a market-based policy. I got to read this so I don't mess it up. That curbs climate pollution from the transportation sector by increasing the availability and affordability of low carbon and renewable transportation fuels. Now, Myers says he actually kind of laughed when I read him that statement that I got back from the governor's office, because he said there's absolutely nothing measurable that the clean fuel standard accomplishes.
The low carbon fuel standard does not reduce CO2 emissions at all. It does zero to reduce CO2 emissions. And people don't understand this. We have the cap and trade system, the Climate Commitment Act, says here's how much CO2 must be reduced. If the clean fuel standard, the low carbon fuel standard, went completely away, we would still have to meet the exact same target. The clean fuel standard does nothing to reduce CO2 emissions. It just says here's a particular way that we want to reduce some of the CO2 emissions. So when they say, oh, it reduced CO2 emissions more than expected, no, it reduced CO2 emissions zero. What they mean though is that when it did more than expected, that's true, but it's an artifact of the system. The system says when prices are low, if you do more than normal, you can bank those credits and use them when prices are high. So what's going to happen is that when prices were low, they did more than they needed to do. The people who had to comply, the companies who had to comply, bought more. But in the future, they're going to use those credits. Now, would the Department of Ecology and others say, oh, they did less than they expected? No, even though it's the same exact logic. It's just a word game. And that, I think, is, these people are not, our climate policy is not serious. Our climate policy has degenerated into a series of pseudo-intellectual word games that are designed to confuse the issue. Like I said, everybody else in the world knows how to do these calculations. Oregon has a very simple calculation. Oregon has had a clean fuel standard longer than we have in Washington. They have a calculation. Every year they apply the calculation. It's very straightforward. It's very rigorous. It's the same one that everybody else uses. Only Washington State uses this ridiculous system where it's like, well, we don't really know. It could be this, or it's like everybody else knows. Use the Oregon price. The Oregon calculation simply says, here's how many credits were sold, here's the price, here's how much they reduce CO2 emission, there you go.
I did reach back out this morning to the office of Governor Ferguson with some of the comments that Myers said in response to the information they sent me last week, and I received no response today. Gas, by the way, is 14 cents cheaper today than it was a month ago. So that's something. It's, I know, little relief for many of us who put a lot of miles on, but maybe we're going in the right direction. We hope it continues to trend that way for you, especially you truckers paying diesel. It is just painful. So that's it for today's episode of Washington in Focus Daily for this Monday, June the 8th. I hope you'll join us again tomorrow. In the meantime, check out our Center Square Washington page for more articles like this. And again, thanks for watching.